Okay, me on the left, clearly Steve on the right. Just very quickly, my experience, I have been in the renewables and the power business for the last 20 years. For my sins, I was a career lawyer before then. Probably hope to be excused for that. Funded 3 or 4 businesses over the last 20 years, largely the wind, solar, and off-grid energy markets. And I think the reason behind First Hydrogen is this collision that we're seeing, I think, increasingly quickly accelerating between, green hydrogen in particular, the automotive market, and the renewables market generally. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Steve Gill. I joined First Hydrogen. I started working with Nick a year ago. I joined formally at the beginning of this year as CEO Automotive. I have an extensive background in the automotive industry, and I spent 20 years with Ford in Germany, UK, and the US. And I finished as head of powertrain for Ford of Europe. So both conventional powertrain technologies, but also entering in the world of electrification. So delighted to be with you today.
So we're going to go to the overview. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we have a combination of automotive and energy. We'll take you through what that means in more detail in the subsequent slides. Essentially, we're looking to break into the hydrogen fuel cell driven electric vehicle market. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. And the energy market, which is essentially enabling us to provide our future customers with a guaranteed supply of green hydrogen and to be able to distribute that green hydrogen. So First Hydrogen Corp is our parent company, based out of Vancouver in Canada, listed on the Canadian Tech Exchange, and I'm pleased to say the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, with an over-the-counter in the US. Current market capitalization, of course, changes every day. I think as of today, around 133 million Canadian dollars. The main activities today are driven through the UK subsidiary, which is First Hydrogen Limited, based in the UK, but I'm pleased to say with senior executives in Germany, Austria, Spain, and Italy for the time being. So we're really looking to create a European base out of the UK and our partner EU countries. Strong ESG focus, that's important to us. One of the benefits of starting from scratch is that you can impose or overlay those considerations right from the beginning, and you don't need to fix it after.
Yeah, so just to expand on our 2 areas, First Hydrogen Automotive, our focus is going to be the largest segment of the light commercial vehicle market. So it's the medium, large light commercial vehicles. We're focusing on fuel cell. We believe that serves a number of segments that aren't well served by pure EV. I'll talk about more of the detail of that as we go through. And then, as Nick said, we know within the industry there's a chicken and egg effect on the infrastructure. We are addressing that through developing our own or partnered fuel stations, which we will be able to give to fleets in their depots and serve them with green hydrogen, where we're involved in that sort of business too. So just to expand on that, you can see here First Hydrogen Automotive, the vehicles being a key piece of that, but we focused on software in terms of fleet offerings, and we have a relationship with Cambridge University, a research relationship with Cambridge University in the UK, where we are developing AI technology to help us expand our offering on hydrogen. And as I work back through, as I say, we'll be offering the fueling infrastructure itself into those fleets and back through all the way back to actual hydrogen, green hydrogen production. So we think this is a very strong combination and USP for us. And just to summarize our USP before we go into the detail, one is we will be developing our own bespoke vehicle that will be focused on fuel cell technology. We believe that will serve certain sectors and enable niche customization. We will have a flexible zero emission propulsion platform, and that's going to be supported by software technology, which we're calling intelligent route and energy management. So it enables us to maximize the efficiency of the vehicle and optimize the use of this flexible powertrain technology. We're going to combine that with the hydrogen as a service offering, and we aim to be asset light as a business. So our sales and service offerings will be digitally oriented and partner oriented. So we'll be direct sales and we'll be partner leveraged on the service model. So what's our activity at the moment? Through 2021, 2022, this is really a strategic phase, and we've got 5 key work streams you can see here. Top work stream is the strategy itself. We've been working with FEV Consulting. FEV Consulting are part of FEV Group, which is a major German automotive consulting group. We've done an extensive market analysis, identified where we want to play in terms of product portfolio, and we're now in this phase of strategy definition. So refining those USPs, the IP, the business model, business case through to September this year. We believe that's going to be quite strong in terms of the offering. That's supported by our early product development. So we're doing 2 things here. We are doing a demonstrator phase, which we're working with AVL, who's a major Austrian engineering consultancy, and we've teamed up with Ballard, who are a leading fuel cell technology company out of Canada, developing early demonstrators, and those are well on their way. The fuel cells are under test currently in Austria, and we receive those vehicles in September this year. So the build of the fuel cell into the vehicle starts at the end of this month, and we will have those. Those are road legal. They'll be certified for road use. And the key point about that is to enable us to engage customers and attract early interest. And indeed, even though we haven't actually gone out and courted customers, we've had strong interest, and we are early engaged in a fleet consortium with a number of major UK fleets who want to trial the vehicles. We're supporting that with the start of our bespoke vehicle design. So this is looking at the structure of the vehicle, the unique energy storage concept, the powertrain, and the modularity of that, and I'll show you that later. The third work stream is the hydrogen. We've started in the UK, but we also have early programs in Canada, and we're doing this on a market by market basis. Some it will be appropriate for us to be involved in production, some we would see us procuring that from other suppliers. And then the distribution side is supported by our hydrogen refueling activity. We've completed an extensive study on that as well with FEV, and we're now into the business case and the sourcing and partnership side of that. Team is critical. We're building our team, and we've got some slides on that later. We expect to be around 30 people by the end of this year. As Nick said, distributed through UK and Europe. And critical for us will be key partnerships. So this will be on the key technologies, who we choose as suppliers, but also how we choose our manufacturing facility and capability, and then strategic partnerships, not just on the automotive side, but back through the hydrogen production as well, where we intend to work with major industrials. So a couple of those things in more detail that are happening through this year. The demonstrators, as I said, are well underway. We've finished the design, procurement, the testing is in place. You can see that we based this on a donor vehicle, which is a Volkswagen MAN ETGE. And I think a couple of key things to point out. The base vehicle in its EV form is certified to do 115 kilometers. We, on the same cycle, the WLTP, will demonstrate over 500 kilometers in terms of capability, and range is really one of the why buys for hydrogen in this market. There are a number of segments that need range that can't be satisfied by pure EV. And then on the right, say our initial program on hydrogen refueling, we've studied all the key elements in terms of choices, such as liquid versus gaseous, such as how we do that. Is it mobile? Is it portable? Is it on demand? There's a number of business models that we are selecting our way through to deliver that. So transition towards hydrogen. I'll flick through these slides quickly, and those who are interested can look afterwards. But there's a clear and growing, I would say, momentum behind hydrogen, not least because of I think everybody would be aware that the events in Ukraine are further accelerating the desire to move towards renewables, and hydrogen is a big enabler for that. But a few slides on that. One is investment. The majority of the major economies are now establishing their hydrogen strategies and putting significant investment into that. You can see Germany, for example, 11 billion announced and growing. In fact, yesterday there were further announcements to accelerate that. So investment is one. Always in automotive is regulatory, both in Europe and North America. The regulatory environment is accelerating. So we expect to see all cars and vans requiring zero emissions in Europe by 2035. And under the Biden administration, there's a similar but not quite as aggressive acceleration in the US, and Canada indeed is aiming for something similar to Europe by 2035. So the regulatory environment is really pushing the need for these zero emissions technologies. Affordability is going to be critical. The price of hydrogen is really projected across all those economies to come down substantially between now and 2030. So you can see that in the European economies and the North American economies to a level where it starts to become very attractive in terms of transportation. And this is green hydrogen. And then the infrastructure is the other key element. Clear acceleration in terms of implementation of hydrogen refueling stations. And we are not waiting for that. We're doing a fleet-oriented investment ourselves, but the public infrastructure will start to accelerate as well as we go through the next 5 to 10 years. So hydrogen really accelerating. Why fuel cell? So in the vehicles, battery electric, you're seeing many players entering this market, but virtually all of them are entering the market for last mile delivery. So short journeys with back to base, where 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers is acceptable, and very suitable for that urban mileage, lighter loads, probably limited auxiliary loading. Whereas fuel cell can offer the range, it can also offer load capacity and offtake load capacity. So things like refrigeration, blue lights, ambulances, camper vans in particular, all suit fuel cell usage. So we, through our market study, have identified a number of segments. And in addition, it just gives you operational flexibility. It gives you that comfort that you have the range, you have the mileage, and you have the capability. So we believe there's a market, we believe that's going to grow as well as the cost equation becomes more favorable. And one of the other things is refueling time. I think everybody's familiar with battery charging and the infrastructure that's going to be needed to support that as the EV market grows. But you need very high power chargers to accelerate that battery charging, whereas hydrogen is much more like conventional gas and diesel charging. So a substantial difference, and again, it contributes to that operational flexibility. This is just a graphic that explains the range and payload benefits. So I have range here, payload here. This is a typical battery electric vehicle. And of course, if you want more range, you need a bigger battery. Bigger batteries are heavy, and so you start to reach a practical limit for battery range. The other thing is payload. The hydrogen powertrain and storage is lighter, so you can utilize more payload, which is again a key sales feature in this market. And then we've looked at the cost of ownership, which is a key buying criteria, the initial cost and the running cost. And we've looked at attractiveness, so the usability really of the vehicle in terms of things like that refueling, the payload, all of those contribute to its attractiveness to customers. In fact, in all segments, fuel cell is very, very attractive. In terms of cost of ownership, clearly the longer distance users are benefiting significantly, but there's a big piece of the market that we think will want a portion of will want to choose fuel cell. So what's our product proposition? We, as I said at the beginning, look at light commercial vehicle, offering that best-in-class operational flexibility. We will have range, we will have that load, we will have that refueling speed, and we'll have a modular vehicle with panel van and chassis cab, addressing those segments that I described earlier in our two focus markets of UK, Europe, and North America. We intend to make it modular, so that will be in terms of wheelbase, lengths and heights in both the variants, and it'll be particularly applicable to bodybuilders who can take that architecture and produce the customization that is very frequent in this market. One thing I touched on is our intent to have a modular and flexible powertrain. So we intend to have a fuel cell, but integrated with battery. So we're going to have a hybrid system, and we believe that gives the best cost equation for the initial cost and optimizes all the attributes of the vehicle. So we think this will be unique. So we will integrate battery and hydrogen tanks into our bespoke design. That's going to be integrated with intelligent range and energy management. So we will have a connected system that enables us to understand the road ahead, the topology of the road, the weather, for example, the load in the vehicle. And we can then operate in different modes. So hybrid mode, fuel cell, recharging battery, to optimize the use of that flexible powertrain between the use of the hydrogen or the use of the battery. And nobody else is doing that in this way. So that's our product. In terms of our low asset approach to development, we are in that strategy phase I described through this year. We are looking at our manufacturing. There's a number of options on the table to change with your volume. Full-scale greenfield or brownfield. It's unlikely we're going to be in that scale, at least initially. We're going to be in this type of scale, where there are a number of choices for us to make. We have our own facility that we contract out, or whether we work with another manufacturer and do what's called hosted manufacturing. And it may be a combination between these to give us the best business equation. And as Nick said at the beginning, we think ESG is a necessity and an opportunity. So that has to be done within the cost, but there are a number of regulatory phases coming in, particularly end of life, which is critical. We need to address, and we will address. And we think this will be an advantage to us as we go through the next 5 years. Sales and service, as I said, sales, we intend not to have a dealer network. There's a good cost benefit for us as a newcomer to the market. We will have regional experience centers. You can see, feel, touch the vehicles and the support services. And on the service side, we will have a market-by-market approach to a partnered service offering to our customers. So I hand back to Nick to talk about hydrogen service and the people in our business.
Yes, so I think, as I mentioned previously, this is a business which, if you want to sell automobiles, vans, whatever you want to sell, you've got to be able to demonstrate to the customer that the customer can easily access the fuel. And that's certainly, the initial feedback we're getting from the fleets. Half the vehicles sold in the segment which we're interested in, at least at the beginning, are fleet owners. So they have very strong views in terms of what they want. We do have a lot of experience within the company in terms of project development. So we are currently developing around 4 projects in the United Kingdom. We'll soon be looking at Canada and other European countries where it's not obvious that customers will be able to find, will be able to access green hydrogen for the mobility business. So we're pursuing these projects in the United Kingdom. That will be done with a big industrial partner with the objective of securing long-term supply at a fixed price of green hydrogen for our fleet customers. In terms of the refueling, because that's the last mile, as Steve mentioned, we are working on different theories in terms of the refueling stations, and we'll be announcing something, I think, in the last quarter of this year in terms of what our final strategy is. Management team and culture, absolutely critical to the success of any business today. We are lucky that in a way we were born under the COVID pandemic. That's allowed us to build a management team successfully, picking the best people in the best place, certainly in Europe, and soon to follow in North America. And so far, as you've heard, with Steve's background as a senior manager in Ford, we are adding to the management list, and there'll be further announcements coming down the line. CFO in particular, head of technology and powertrain engineering, and I think we're finding that the proposition for very senior people to join First Hydrogen seems to be very, very attractive at the moment. Strong non-executive and advisory team. From the left, Rob Campbell, currently Chief Commercial Officer at Ballard, one of the major global fuel cell manufacturers, bringing 12 years of experience at Ballard, so absolutely critical in helping us formulate the strategies going forward. Dr. Peter Williams, again, non-executive director of First Hydrogen, 40 years, which broadly split between director of technology at BP for some 20 years, and more latterly, the head of investment at INEOS, which, for those of you who don't know, is the largest privately owned company in the UK, with a presence globally and around £62 billion of turnover every year. Seamus Higson, professor at Cambridge, part of our partnership with Cambridge, which is progressing very nicely. And then Marcus Deur, part of our team, actually acts as a part-time consultant with us, really focused on the strategy side. He's really born and bred in the automotive industry and is a critical part of what we're trying to do going forward. Our culture is clearly a people business. It's an innovation business, technology-driven business, and we're going to forge ahead without making the same mistakes, dare I say, as some of the other automotive businesses, which are sort of have been well written about. We're agile, we're international. That's absolutely key to what we're trying to do. We are based in the UK, but we're looking at North American markets and the European markets with as much focus as we are the UK market. That's probably all we have to say on the slide deck. I guess, T.S., it's probably time to take some questions.
Great, yeah. We have actually quite some time left for questions. So for the audience, you're welcome to post questions through the chat or the Q&A function. Maybe a first question from my side. So how much was...
Yes, we can't hear you.
Oh, maybe now?
Can
you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. And so maybe first question from my side. How much was already invested in this technology, and what kind of patent strategy do you have?
So if you remember rightly, we've got a dual path strategy in terms of the automotive side. We've invested around 6 million Canadian dollars so far. I think by the end of this year, it's more likely to be just shy of 20 million Canadian dollars. We've, as I think has been mentioned, we've invested in these 2 demonstrator vehicles where we've actually created the powertrain and refitted it to an existing Volkswagen EV van. In terms of patents going forward, we believe there will be patents in our bespoke design, just as Tesla revolutionized the electric passenger car. We think there's different ways of approaching the powertrain and the chassis, which will lead to patentable assets going forward. And in particular, our hybrid strategy and our ability to make decisions on the quantity of batteries we put into a particular vehicle and the hydrogen storage side. I don't know, Steve, you want to say more about that?
Yeah, we're looking heavily at the patent side across the vehicle design itself, which we are, as I say, we are able to optimize for fuel cell, the energy storage module and mechanism, and the predictive software, both in terms of operation of the vehicle and the powertrain, but also the offering to the customer in terms of the connected service offering and our research with Cambridge.
Okay. And how much capital is required in the coming years?
Well, those decisions still need to be taken. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention is why we're here. We're really here to raise the profile of the company, not necessarily to beg for money. And we're trying to do everything in the right order. So certain steps have to be accomplished. We're fully funded to do that so far. These are businesses which do require substantial amounts of capital. We have a program for going to the market early next year once those amounts are defined. And it's also being opportunistic. You don't want to go for a huge amount of capital, as I think has been seen in a number of recent examples for automotive, BEVs, electric vehicles. You can go to the market too early and raise too much money almost. So we want to avoid those traps. Sometimes not being first is an advantage. And I think certainly in the capital market side of a new automotive business, I think we certainly feel that we're at an advantage, having seen what's happened in the very, very short past.
And in terms of running costs, how does it compare to EV or combustion engines? Is it similar or?
Well, that was the graphic I showed on cost of ownership versus attractiveness. Certainly, as the range of the vehicle increases, the orientation towards fuel cell increases. So it was very oriented towards fuel cell for the higher range versus BEV. And when we look around the 2030 timeline, it's attractive in all segments versus diesel and gasoline. So we see an opportunity for the market to actually accelerate. And I think that's what we're seeing in passenger car EVs. And we're going to see that happen in vans in the second half of this decade. And we think that as the fuel cell costs come down in that period, post 2025, and the hydrogen costs come down, the attractiveness from a cost perspective is going to be there.
I think I'd add to that. It depends on your view also of the cost of electric vehicle charging. You probably follow that, but the quicker the charge, the higher the price. And we think that's a phenomenon which is likely to continue. So when you're comparing a fuel cell vehicle to a pure electric vehicle, certainly in the commercial market, it's not just a range issue, it's also will be a cost of refueling issue. And what we know is that the price of hydrogen, green hydrogen, is coming down and will continue to come down. It's only at the beginning of its life. And all the forecasts, which seem to be being met actually earlier than forecast, is that the price of green hydrogen will come down to a very competitive level, certainly below the cost of fast charging electric vehicles, and of course increasingly less relevant, the cost of diesel and petrol as they get phased out.
So just a quick reminder for the viewers, you can always post questions. From my side, so what's your current competition?
Yeah, so the competitive market is the traditional OEMs. Those OEMs, I think, have the challenge of continuing with their conventional offerings. So the diesel, the gasolines, the hybrids, they certainly need to invest in the EV. So we're expecting to see them investing in EV because there's already a lot of competition in that EV market from many new entrants. You know, the Rivians, the Arrivals, the Canoes. There's many people who have entered that market as a challenge. We don't necessarily see all the major OEMs wanting to go into fuel cell, so we think that's a good thing. Equally, we see some of them, Renault, Stellantis, who are starting to produce initial range extended product, I'll call it, in that sphere. So we think this is a good market because it's not going to be everybody's choice. So we think there is a more than a niche, but we think there's an opportunity to enter this market as a newcomer, where a lot of people have gone down the EV route. Not a lot of people are doing this yet. I think we're pitching at the right point in time and the right market.
And maybe for a quick outlook, where do you see the company in 5 years?
Well, we will be in production with our bespoke vehicle. We will have our refueling architecture in place, and we expect to be partnered in multiple green hydrogen production facilities in Europe and North America.
And regarding the refueling infrastructure, that is probably one of the biggest challenges, right? So,
yeah, exactly, and that's why we think our offering is somewhat unique, and that we're going to address that directly certainly for our fleet customers, and we see some opportunities beyond that actually that we're not quite ready to talk about. And then as we get towards the latter part of this decade, as I showed earlier, the acceleration in the public infrastructure will then support growth into customers beyond the fleets. And so that's our expectation. So we're going to address it directly as part of our USP, and then we expect the public infrastructure to then support further growth in the business.
Okay. So currently there are no questions in the chat and or the Q&A function. So just a reminder for the audience, you can always post questions. Yeah, from my side, another question. Is the engine actually the same size as the regular, or will you lose like carrying capacity with the light vehicle vans, or is it similar size like a combustion engine?
Well, in a electrically or fuel cell powered vehicle, you have a motor, so the motor will be equivalent or better than a conventional powertrain, and then the supply of energy to that motor comes from this unique combination of a battery and a fuel cell, so it will be capable of all operational requirements.
All right. We have about 2 minutes left, so maybe you can communicate a great conclusion for all the investors or potential investors.
Look, I think the conclusion is we're starting out. Okay, it's an automotive business and a hydrogen production and distribution business, so there are long lead times. We are conscious of the need to show milestone progress, and that we've got pretty clearly mapped out. We will be coming back to the market for more money once we have achieved, certain determined milestones, which are proving the different concepts which we are currently working on. So I think watch this space. It will be coming. We will be coming for more money at the right time, but on the back of very significant progress and announcements. One thing I would say is, as Steve mentioned in his in one of his slides, we've got 2 demonstrators. It's the first time that we're aware that these pure fuel cell demonstrators will be road legal. The idea behind that is that those vehicles will be booked by the fleets. And as Steve mentioned, we've got 5 large fleet owners who have already expressed an interest in booking a trial slot. What do we expect from that? We expect from that input, because this is what happens today, input from those fleets in terms of what the future vehicle looks like. And we expect preliminary orders to be booked, soft orders to be booked, as is quite common in these new businesses. So watch this space. I think towards the end of this year, that's what we will be seeing. The other, I think, interesting and important development is going to be, we expect of the 4 sites that we have submitted for approval and subsidy in the UK, we would expect at least one of those to be granted significant subsidy to go forward, to really start and underscore our ability to gain significant projects and control the supply of green hydrogen for our customer base. So there's a lot happening in 2022. I think I would just invite people to watch the stock and see whether it's something that they want to follow more closely.
Perfect conclusion. Thank you very much. Great presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody.